It's Ivy Slater, and you're listening to Her Success Story podcast, a show where gutsy businesswomen share their success journey. Hi, this is Ivy Slater. Welcome to today's episode of Her Success Story. For those of you who are just chiming in and haven't been following us too much, we're doing a series about women leaders in the legal field. And it's really exciting to talk to different women in various parts of the legal field and see what their backgrounds, what they've learned about leadership. Today, I'm thrilled to introduce you to Leslee M. Cohen. Leslee concentrates her transactional practice in securities law, corporate finance, and general corporate law. She counsels a variety of entities from small entrepreneurs to startup companies and large established businesses across many industries, from real estate to technology, in connection with private placements of both equity and debt securities, including venture capital, private equity, and friends and family investments. Leslee started her own company called AllRise, and welcome, Leslee, as you rise with me today, and we get to learn more about you and AllRise. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
So, I have to ask, did you always know you wanted to be an attorney?
My parents told me I was going to be an attorney. Crazy story from 5th grade on. I mean, my mom drove me by the junior high school to say, this is the school that you get to practice, and then you're going to get to high school where every grade counts toward getting into the best college, where every grade counts toward getting into the best law school. So it wasn't even a question. I have so many family members who are lawyers. But more than anything, and I'm so grateful for this actually, and I certainly questioned along my journey whether I might made the right decision, but now I'm so grateful. My parents felt like every woman needs to have, and man, but a career where they always know they'll be able to pay the bills. And my parents said, worst case scenario, you never practice, but you're put in a position that you need to put food on your table, you can hang a shingle. And I'm grateful for that.
I think that's brilliant knowledge. And I know when I was growing up, and many people who've been following her success story know I have a degree in dance and I have a degree in communications. And the communications came upon me because my parents said, dance is great and we're thrilled and we know you love it and you want to build a career there, that's fabulous. And you must, just in case, always be able to have something you could pay a bill with.
Yep.
So there was a little bit of that generational knowledge.
Yes. Well, I think because the generation before us, the women didn't have that. So, correct. Yeah.
So, because, there's a difference between being an attorney and working for somebody, and then people who decide to start their own practice. And some people go slow, some people hire, some people do a variety of different things. Share with me a little bit of the journey of building AllRise Legal Counsel.
Sure. So I spent 20 years in big law, first 6 years on Wall Street, and then the next 13 at a large firm here in Chicago. And I ended up leaving the big law world and starting my firm. It was actually really interesting. So I have 2 boys that I was raising, and my deal in the big firm world, while I was really ensconced in parenting, was you do your work and go home. You don't have to build your own practice. You don't have to have your own book of business. And I know they were doing that as a gift to me so that I wouldn't have to, do the additional work of marketing. It didn't turn out to be a gift in the end because I reached a point where I was only, I was an income partner, and I really had higher aspirations than that. And so I wanted to make equity partner, and you had to have a very large book of business to do that. And so I reached a point where my kids were in school all day. I had more time, and I didn't see a path toward getting to that equity partner level. The firm I was at was almost all men, great men who treated me so well. There was no, but the way that they developed business was golf and charity dinners. And that was, I wanted to be with my kids on the weekends and at night. So neither of those were going to work for me. I didn't have a role model as to any other way to develop business. So one of my partners happened to walk in and say, I'm starting my own firm. He had his own personal reasons. And I was sort of at a turning point professionally where I wasn't sure what was next, because I knew I wanted to reach that next level in some organization or another. And I said, take me with you. It was just sort of it was like a little Jerry Maguire, like, don't leave me here, you know? And so we started the firm together. I never in a million years thought of like a small firm as somewhere where you could practice sophisticated law. And I was sorely mistaken. And so we started the firm, and then built the book over time, little by little. We can go into that more, you know, if we want to continue discussing that. And then about a year and a half ago, my partner decided to step back. And so I took over and changed the name to AllRise, because we're really dedicated to helping women rise, to helping our startup clients rise, and became my business.
You know, first of all, it takes guts to walk away. No, it does. It takes guts to, especially as you're raising two children, to walk away from a steady salary. And I think that has to be acknowledged. And I think every person, not just every woman, but every person, man and woman, you know, it takes a certain type of person who are willing to do that and take that risk and have that belief that they're going to be okay. So, you know, first of all, kudos to you. It's interesting. I have not worked for somebody for over 30 years in my life easily. And I've always relied on myself to make my own income. When you guys started building this organization, you know, you shared you had a belief that said, okay, you build business at charity dinners and golf courses, and I'm a mom with a couple of kids. How did you go about shifting that knowledge, shifting your perspective and shifting your methodology there?
Well, it was interesting. My partner, I thought that he had enough business that I was just going to continue doing work for him. And he had plenty of business, but not, you know, enough for me full time. And I was sort of panic stricken. I knew I wanted to build a book, but I had no idea how to do it. I was 42 years old and had never, I mean, when I used to go on to pitches in the big firm world, and they would take me to do, you know, a beauty contest in front of a large investment bank. And I'd be rehearsing for hours in the mirror, and my chest was all red blotchy. And I was, you know, just, I mean, marketing to me was terrifying. So I had to figure out a way to do it in a way that wasn't terrifying to me. And it was really when this whole concept of networking was pretty new, and especially new to me. So we're talking about 11 and a half years ago. And so I started doing the networking thing. There were all these women's networking groups popping up. I thought, like, there's a place where I would feel comfortable. So I started going to these meetings and listening to what the other women were saying and doing. And I talked about that I would be a great general counsel for a company that was too small to need in-house counsel. And I found that there were about 3 other people, interestingly many were women, sitting around every one of those same tables. And so, and saying the exact same message. So I had to figure out what differentiated me. And I had this securities law background. I had been representing publicly traded companies, doing their reporting in front of the Securities and Exchange Commission for my whole career. And so I thought about, okay, that makes me unique. And there really aren't other firms competing with me in Chicago that are doing that, except at the large firm level. And so I started talking about being a securities lawyer at all these meetings. And then one day, this wonderful woman who I would, you know, give her my firstborn, not really, but she said to me, oh, you're a securities lawyer, you keep companies safe. And I said, no, I represent companies that are raising money. And she said, oh, why don't you tell people that no one understands what you do? So, you know, I think when you're a lawyer and you go to law school, you understand the different areas of law. But I mean, anyone who's a lawyer listening knows that, you know, I used to get questions, I still do questions, you know, you're in an elevator in a building and someone's like, oh, you're a lawyer? Well, my dog bit my, next door neighbor. Can you help me out with that? And no, I can't. I represent companies raising money. So that's not my niche, And so anyway, once I had that line, that simple, I represent companies raising money, it changed everything. The startup world was burgeoning in Chicago and around the country. Everyone knew of startup that was raising money, and my rates were a third, if not less, than the large firms.
Then big law, which makes you an asset versus competition. And especially in that category where every dollar counts on spend, that you become a sought out resource.
Yeah, that's exactly what happened. And then we do practice in other areas, general corporate and M&A, but it's confusing, I've learned, to clients to hear I do this and I do this and I do this. So I really stick with that message. And then you become the trusted advisor. And then they come to you and say, oh, by the way, I need a license agreement reviewed. Do you know anyone who does that? Yes, I actually do that as well. And so that really was how we did it.
And I think, that happens to be so true. So often, like, we're put in, and I'll throw, although I'm not an attorney, because it's parallel to so many businesses. It's yes, and I do this, and yes, and I do this, and yes, and I do this. And it's so easy to say, well, we want to be of service. We want everybody to know how wonderful we are and how much we can help them in so many areas. And we're like, that's great. And narrow it down. Let people truly understand, know the result they're going to get by engaging you or hiring you. And that is, you help companies that are in raising capital. That makes 100%. And now those company, of course, has other needs. And because you've already established a relationship with them, you are their go-to resource.
Exactly.
So in this journey, AllRise has been around for how long?
Well, it was Hirschman Cohen for 10 years, and now AllRise for it's only been about 3 months.
Cool. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
In building this, you're doing some things that just make sense to you. Share a little bit about your vision.
So my vision, and I came upon this sort of by mistake. So I'll explain how, but first, my vision is to give women who need flexible work arrangements the ability to do their very high level work and, continue to be challenged and to be relevant in the field at the same time as being able to do that on whatever flexible time schedule works for them. So when I first started growing the business and I had all this new work and I was working, 7 days a week, 8 hours a day, and got to a point where I just said, I just can't do this anymore. I need some more help. But I was so scared to bring on someone who I was responsible for paying their bills and giving them insurance. And what if I didn't have enough work? And so I reached out. Sidley in Austin has this great moms listserv. And you can just go on there and post a job. And I just said, anyone who wanted flexible work and sort of, I don't have any minimum I'm asking from you. I can't really give you any minimum amount of work. If you're interested in this kind of arrangement, let me know. And I found a wonderful, wonderful woman. And so that was sort of how it started. And when I met her, she has one son who had gone to college, and she has her own practice and decided she wanted to take on some more work. So that was the first relationship, and we still have an of-counsel relationship with each other. But it worked so well that when I went to find someone else, again, I found another, this time a young mom who, incredible background educationally, and 6 years at Skadden Arps and associate general counsel of a hedge fund and all that good stuff. And she had just had a second baby. They asked her to become general counsel of the hedge fund. She panicked and just said, I can't do all this. And I got really lucky and found her. And then I ended up finding this greatest resource in the world, which is the Mom Project. Do you know what that is?
I've heard about the Mom Project, and I actually have a client who's hired from there. Another client who's hired from there.
That is my go-to source now. So I've hired 3 more lawyers from the Mom Project since then. And so some of them, again, older, even older than I am, more experienced, and just said, okay, I've worked full-time my whole career. I've got aging parents I want to care for, and or a spouse that's retired and I want to travel. One of our lawyers said, December, I need December off. My husband and I want to take great trips every December. That's fine. I don't think many firms would be okay with that, but I can plan around it. So it's absolutely fine with me. And then some others are raising little kids.
So, Leslee, what I'm hearing is we had the pandemic has started helping us re-envision how we work. And what you're doing as far as visionary with AllRise is you're meeting the workforce where they are today and building a company accordingly.
Yes.
And hands off to you, truly, because it now puts you as a leader this way in building the next iteration of your firm, moving into year 11 as a business owner, in doing this in the new visionary way, which is the AllRise way.
Yeah, thank you. I love it. I think something that's a little different. There are some people who are building I think all virtual law firms. I am not. Culture is super important to me, culture and development of lawyers. And so I have had many times where I've tried to hire and, I've gone to hire and I waited for the perfect candidate who's in the Chicago area, because I've gotten remote candidates who want to remain remote. But it's important to me, the camaraderie of spending time together. So we all come to the office 1 day a week, and the firm buys lunch for everyone. And whatever we can do, we do 2 events a year. COVID made it that difficult, but the intent is, and there was a little break during the summer, so we did a summer outing together. But the intent is to build not just a bunch of different lawyers around the country, but a really strong, bonded group of women and men eventually.
So what has surprised you in going out on your own and building your own firm?
I think I alluded to it earlier, which is that small firms can be very sophisticated. I just pictured an old guy with gray hair sitting in a corner drafting wills. I really didn't realize there are so many.
Dear.
Yeah. There are just so many sophisticated small firms out there who are just as good of lawyers and a real lot better value than the large firms. So that was probably the biggest one. The other one was that when I bought out my partner and started to, my business just grew exponentially. And as that happened, and I started to show interest in actually running the business, I think that's been the biggest surprise in the last few years, which is I know how to be a lawyer. I have no idea how to run a business, and I better figure that out really quickly. So, and when my partner left and I wanted to do things sort of more my way, I had to figure out, we had no accounting system. So figuring out QuickBooks and hiring an outsourced CFO to reconcile the books and records, and how to lead. That's been a really challenging. I feel that these women who work for me are just superstars, and I don't feel like comfortable being the boss, because I have the ultimate respect for them. I think every one of them is just as good, if not a better lawyer than I am. They're terrific people. So this discomfort with being in this role, I've had to get over that. So just, being a business owner is very different than being a lawyer.
It's so true. And it's amazing how many people have shared with me over the years how, the development of the skill sets of a business owner and a business leader. And, more power to you. You've seen and created a vision, and you will achieve everything because that's who you are. And how you've already faced some challenges that you have overcome.
Well, with
And
your help, hopefully that'll be true.
um, so I want to ask, I'm going to ask it this way. Your mom, you're building an amazing organization. You have been building an amazing organization for 10, now going into 11 years. How have you found the, I hate to use the word balance because I don't believe in work-life balance. I believe in work-life priorities and how that fluctuates in times. But how do you balance yourself with all the moving pieces of motherhood, being a wife, being a business leader and owner? What are some of your go-tos?
That's a great question. Yes, I am torn in a lot of directions all the time. One is having the best husband in the world who buys into and bought into from day one when I had no business, my taking this chance of being 50% of our household income and taking a chance at a risk on losing that, and knowing that he knew that I was gonna make it. He had to pitch in a lot more than, there was a point where I said, I just can't do this anymore, because I'm not only practicing, now I'm adding marketing, and I can't be responsible for everything for everyone all the time. And so we sat down and figured out, what is it that, like, a chunk we could take off my plate and put onto his. And he cares about food a lot. I just don't. I'm just not a big eater. So we passed on. He does the meal planning, grocery shopping, and cooking, and then I clean up. But that's a huge amount of even mental space, figuring out what's for dinner and going to the grocery store. And, so that was really, really helpful. So just having him in my corner, willing to help in any way possible, giving me the strength that he was, and the encouragement that he was behind me when, on those days when, the first 2 years, not a lot of business came in. I didn't know what I was doing networking. So having him say, like, you're going to be able to do this. So that was one, and stepping up with the kids. Two is, there are certain things for me that are non-negotiable. So, like, for me, working out 3 days a week for an hour is just, my mental health suffers so much and that's just me, if I don't do that. And so that is a scheduled thing. And, men don't tell their clients if they aren't available at a certain time. They don't say, like, oh, I have to take my kid to the pediatrician. They just say, oh, that time doesn't work for me. How about this time? So I learned that I didn't need to justify the time I needed for myself. And there are 3 days a week from 9 to 10 a.m. or whatever it is, like, I'm not available because I'm working out. And that's not a question. It's just, and of course there are emergencies. That's a different story. But in general, another thing that I think I do really well is compartmentalizing. So I try really hard to say, when I'm at work, and I'm not sitting and thinking about my kids. I had an incredible nanny. I have to trust her and rely on her, and taught my kids, like, you don't bother me when I'm at work. Again, obviously there are situations where that's just not the case, but it was never a, hi mom, I just got home from school. We'll talk about that when I get home from work. Like, I have boundaries. And when I'm with my kids, same thing. I'm 100% with my kids. I do not pick up calls from clients. I do not, I'm not sitting and thinking about work as much as possible. I try to really be in the moment, in whichever moment I'm in.
I think I put that in, and I just did this recently, is I try to be 100% present where I am.
Yep.
And if I'm doing something with my family, I'm 100% present doing something with my family. When I'm doing a podcast recording, I'm 100% present doing that podcast recording. I try to be, and I work towards being 100% present wherever I am and whatever I'm engaged in. When I'm working with a client, I'm 100% present. And that's something I go by and live by, and always have as well. I've been a working mother for 29 and a half years based on my oldest child. And it's being present where you are. I think that's a huge tip. I also really loved what you said about taking care of your own mental health and your own wellness. You know, for you, it's working out. For me, I have to do a certain amount of working out a week. I meditate, you know, not long. It could be 5-10 minutes. It's not like 3 hours of ohms. It's just a little bit of time that grounds me. Knowing what works for you, what your routine is, and how that helps you. And it goes back to putting that oxygen mask on first. If you don't take care of yourself and your own wellness in whatever fashion that is, if it's healthy eating to exercise, meditation, and many other things out there, then why are you building anything if you're not that important?
Yeah. It's funny. I can say all that now. It definitely took time to get to that place that I felt that way.
Which is why you're a great asset for companies who are looking to raise capital, because it took you a while to understand the early stage of the build. Like it took me years to understand, you know, building a business, building a book of business, etc. Also building a book of business at my time in a male-oriented world that I was in early on. That you are a great asset to your clients at this time.
No, I thank you. And I agree, because I get it. I'm basically a startup as well. And so I do see, and that's a great thing. I form relationships with my clients where they know that they can come to me with stuff like that that's not necessarily legal. And I can put in my 2 cents because I lived it.
Yeah. So Leslee, how can our listeners learn more about you and follow you out there?
Oh, so nice. My website is www.allriselawyers.com. And I'm also on LinkedIn. And so either of those would be great.
Wonderful. Listeners, you want to check out Leslee Cohen. Her company is AllRise. Follow her on social media. See what women leaders of today and how they're leading us through to tomorrow have to say, and we will all continue to learn. For those of you who got something from this interview, said, hey, you know, that really made sense, put that in the notes below. Always mark your takeaways and the actions you're going to take from there, because that's how we can support every single person who gives a listen to her success story. Also, if this resonated with content in the interview, please share that forward. Hit subscribe. We're going to be in your inbox every Monday morning, bright and early, with wonderful interviews and great content. Thank you for joining me here on Her Success Story.